opportunity to ask questions to Cowboys insider Mickey Spagnola. This is Silver Star Nation Interactive.
And welcome into Silver Star Nation Interactive, the last one of 2019 because, well, unfortunately the Cowboys met their demise this past week. Despite winning, well, Philadelphia won. So that knocked the Cowboys out of the postseason. Jay Burr in for Wes Moore this time around here. And let's get right into it here. Let's bring in our resident expert here, Mickey Spagnola. Mickey, I guess first and foremost, how you doing? You got any big plans for the new year?
As a matter of fact, I'm going to go and attend the Winter Classic at the Cotton Bowl tomorrow. So that'll be my big plan for New Year's Day.
That's fantastic. That's definitely on my bucket list of things to do here. Let's get to the Cowboys here. Obviously, the big news, or I guess the big lack of news right now, has been the status of Jason Garrett. What do you know? What do you think is going to happen here at this hour?
Yeah, we're still kind of in a waiting mode here at the Star. There were supposed to be meetings going on today between Jerry and Jason Garrett. Not sure if they've concluded, how long they've gone, anything like that, but starting to kind of get the feeling that there's going to continue meeting after New Year's Day, so we'll see where that one goes. Not sure what the delay is on making a decision, basically one way or other. I think there's an assumption out there that Jason Garrett is not going to get re-signed on a contract. But if it was that cut and dried, you would think the Cowboys would have made an announcement by now. My understanding also is whatever they decide, if it doesn't come down today, then they probably won't do anything on New Year's Day in deference to the Stars Winter Classic game at the Cotton Bowl.
And I guess the real big question here is why draw this out? Because 97% of the time you see guys touchdown back home after a season, boom, guys are fired basically right on the spot. Is there anything else that could be in the works, maybe front office gig, or what do you think maybe the holdup really is here?
Yeah, and let's also remember, Jay, it's not a firing. His contract's going to expire, so I guess we can play semantics with it, right? It's
yeah.
Oh, he's not being re-signed, right? So yeah, I don't know. I wish I had the answer for you on that, on what could take this long. But I mean, there's no hurry to get it done. It's not like the candidates that you may be looking at are flying off the board left and right. There was a couple hirings, but I don't think the Cowboys were going in that direction. So so I think that this is a difficult decision for Jerry Jones, even though if he knows what he's going to do, and I don't know if everybody was listening to the Fox broadcast on the Cowboys' final game of the season against the Redskins, but Fox analyst Troy Aikman said, and he's right about this, the last thing Jerry Jones wants to have happen is not have Jason Garrett as his head coach. When he hired Jason Garrett, I think Jerry had this kind of dream that this was going to be his Tom Landry, somebody that would coach this team for 20 years, and he just didn't anticipate the bump on the road that they hit in this season to give him pause on that, on what he thought could happen long term.
And so I guess what would you peg the odds here? It kind of seems like a toss-up right now. Do you think 70-30 he's let go? What do you think right now?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm good with odds. Everybody's looking at, well, okay, what other decision can he make, right? But if it was that cut and dried, it wouldn't be taken this long. So obviously they're doing some thinking. And the only other thing I can think about that might be taking place right now is Jerry's just kind of debriefing Jason on what went on in the season. Maybe debriefing him on his assistant coaches, things that you don't have a chance to talk about during the season when you're right in the middle of everything. What about this guy? Would you keep this guy? Would you keep that guy? I'm sure he's getting Jason's input on those types of things too, and probably on players also. And I don't think it's in Jason Garrett's nature to just get up in a huff and walk out the door and slam it and leave. I think that he would finish the job, and and he would still be under contract for 2 weeks after the final game. So he's doing what I think he thinks professionally he's obligated to do.
All right, so let's operate under the assumption here that he is not brought back here. Who would be maybe the top couple of guys that you think the Cowboys might look to?
You know what? I've seen the names out there, but I don't know what Jerry Jones is thinking. I'll tell you what I think should be the prerequisite for the next head coach, if there is a next head coach. I want a guy that's been a head coach, and maybe not a retread, maybe a guy that's only been out a year or so, but somebody. I don't want somebody coming in and practicing being a head coach on my dime. This is still a decent roster. I know they've got a lot of free agents that they have to deal with, but some of the key pieces are in place. So say you hire a coordinator that's never been a head coach. Just because he can coordinate doesn't mean he can be a head coach. It takes a whole different cat to be able to stand in front of the whole room and manage the whole team, not just your side of the ball. So to me, I want a guy, and if it's a college guy, it's got to be a head coach. I don't want an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator promoted if they've never been a head coach at any level in their career. I think the Cowboys should be past that. And if they can find somebody that still wants to be a head coach and maybe hasn't done it for a year or two, I don't want them out much longer than that. Because I think what happens with a lot of successful head coaches that quote-unquote retire, then when they come back after being out for 3 or 4 years, they forget how hard they had to work to get to the level they once were. So I just think it's a tough decision, and there's not anything that you've got to rush into at this point, especially with the playoffs going on. And I know you're not going to get one of those head coaches, but again, to me, I want somebody that's been a head coach, and if that means going in the college ranks, I kind of close my eyes and might do that, but that college guy better have some NFL experience in his background.
Absolutely here. You mentioned the roster a little bit and how there's going to be a little turnover, at least some big issues that they're going to have to deal with, obviously, with Dak, Amari, and Byron Jones. Some guys that are due some big money. How do they try to work those guys into the salary cap and still be able to address a lot of the other needs that they have?
Well, that's probably one of the reasons why it hasn't gotten done or didn't get done during the season. That they've got to be very careful on where they spread their salary cap bucks around. And understand that if they can't come to a long-term deal with, say, Dak Prescott, then they'll just franchise him. But they got to get one of those two guys signed, I think, and then you can franchise the other guy. I'm not sure that the Amari deal should be difficult. I know Dak's is a little bit more difficult because it's a quarterback. There's been precedents set. But again, what we all see out there is the total package of those quarterback deals. But what you need to look at is the guaranteed money. How much money are these guys guaranteed over how many years? And with Dak, since his contract's up, it's probably going to be a 5-year deal. So you can't spread as much as the guarantee around as some of these other guys that signed with a year to go and then signed a 5-year deal. So their money was spread over 6 years. So the structure of that deal is a little bit more difficult to come to than I think maybe Amari Cooper's. I think that one should be a little easier to get done. And then Byron Jones, again, from a cornerback standpoint, after you get those other two done, the Cowboys usually sign these guys, kind of prioritize what they do. And I would think unless Byron Jones says, hey, wait, give me this money, I'll take this before those other two guys take it all, then maybe they get that one done. Funny story, Jay, during the season, we were in the locker room and some people were asking Dak about his contract, and somebody said, well, other guys got to get signed, and they mentioned La'el Collins, that he needed a new contract. And suddenly Collins came by and they said something about, hey, Dak said that, you need a new contract too. And he looked at Dak and he said, yeah, I do. And he goes, I'd appreciate it if you didn't take all the money before I signed. Well, funny thing is, he ends up signing an extension during the season before Dak's even gets done. So those guys know what's going on. But again, LC saw something that said, you know what, I can get my money a little bit earlier, and I better grab what they're offering before maybe there's not as much to offer after they get my buddy Dak signed. So he went ahead and got his done. Jalen Smith got his done.
Right.
And if you look at those contracts, they were kind of team-friendly contracts.
All right. So also some other guys who might be leaving via the retirement or potential retirement: Sean Lee, Jason Witten, and then also Vander Esch, kind of still up in the air with what his status could potentially be if he does decide to maybe give it an 11th year.
Yeah, I think with Sean Lee, he said that he would probably, kind of deliberate here for a month or two and make sure he had some sort of decision if he wanted to continue playing by early March, because he figured that's when I got to get back and start working out, doing off-season work to get ready for a season. So I think that one maybe is a little more iffy. I think Jason Witten, as just kind of after we saw how he reacted after the game against the Redskins, he kind of acted like this might be my last one, and I think his decision will come a little sooner. But a couple of things that I saw afterwards, he was getting ready to walk through the club to go to the locker room, and go through the club where all the fans are, and he stopped before going through the entrance there from the field, and he grabbed Sean Lee, and they took a picture together, and then he ran to the northeast kind of corner of the field and kind of waved at the stands, and I'm assuming that's where his family was. And then instead of going through the club, he walked along the bunker suites there and kind of shook hands and slapped hands with some of the fans that were still there. It went through the other tunnel. So it was almost like a little victory walk at the end. So I think Jason Witten probably thinks this is it. It would surprise me if he came back. And then you mentioned Leighton Vander Esch. He'll have the surgery to remove the disc, his herniated disc in his neck in the next week or two. But they're looking at a 4-month rehab, and they seem pretty confident. Now, they haven't done the surgery yet, but they seem pretty confident that what they'll do, he'll be able to come back and play. The Cowboys have had other guys have similar surgery to repair a herniated disc in the neck. Daryl Johnston, Rocket Ishmael, Chad Headings, guys like that, and they came back and played. So I think they feel pretty optimistic that he'll continue his career.
And I guess looking ahead to the draft here, Cowboys have the 17th pick in the first round, 19th pick in the second round. And obviously we haven't gone through the combine and all the other things that go along with that. But I guess as of right now, what direction do you think they go with maybe those first two picks?
You know what, Jay? Put up a dartboard and throw a dart at it. And whatever position you hit, I guarantee you, other than quarterback and probably running back, they probably need it. Look at the defensive line. Robert Quinn's a free agent. Malik Collins is a free agent. Tyrone Crawford's going to try to come back from dual hip surgery. There's no guarantees there. So they need guys on that defensive line. Michael Bennett is a free agent. So they'll need help. Robert Quinn, as I said, free agent. So defensive tackle, defensive end, sure. If Sean Lee should retire and you still got to see Leighton Vander Esch, no problem with the linebacker. And then in the secondary, they got a bunch of guys that are free agents, and you mentioned Byron Jones already. And if you look at some of the other guys, Anthony Brown's a free agent, Jeff Heath's a free agent. So they've got guys that they've got to replace on that defensive side of the ball. And then on offense, everybody talked about the depth they thought they had on the offensive line. I'm not sure how deep that depth was. And Joe Looney's a free agent. Su'a-Filo's a free agent. And then if Witten retires, you probably need another tight end. And the wide receiver position, Michael Gallup, you get Amari Cooper signed, but Randall Cobb's a free agent. And I don't think there's any, in-house replacement right away that you say, okay, that'll take Cobb's spot. So again, as I said, I don't think you have to worry about saying, I just need to have this. Whatever's there that's good, best player, I bet you have a position for the guy.
And you kind of touched on a little bit with some of the free agency as well. Can we expect the Cowboys to maybe be some big spenders, or after they kind of get all of their in-house things taken care of, are they really going to have a lot to be able to go out and maybe get a guy or two?
Yeah, I think you probably answered your own question. Their big spenders will be signing their own guys. I don't know how much that they'll be able to do and say, okay, that guy's available, I can get him. You know, they would like to have Robert Quinn back. They would spend a little bit money to do that, but I don't know how much. They'd love to have Randall Cobb back, but again, he'll be 31 next year. You got to be careful on those long-term contracts for wide receivers. So I think first you look from within before you start looking and say, oh, okay, I need to buy that guy for this position. And the other thing you have to take into account on all this is, what's this coaching staff going to look like? Yeah. You know, is it the same? Is it changing? What might that coach want compared to what the Cowboys have or have done at those positions? So I just think there's so much up in the air right now. It's hard to answer any of these questions fully.
And I guess final thing here, coming into the season, a lot of expectations, a lot of hype, starting out 3-0. Jerry was calling this the most complete team he's had in a long time. And then they just kind of hit the wall there, lost 8 of the last 13, kind of muddled about there, had a couple of losing streaks in there. I guess when you look at the totality of this season, what went wrong?
Yeah, there were so many things that you can put your finger on. You know, their inconsistency was enough to probably drive you mad, drive the fans mad, drive the coaching staff, the front office mad. They just couldn't seem to get in a good rhythm after that 3-game winning streak to start the season, and they had weird things happen to them. Not an excuse, but weird things happen. Like take the Saints game, you lose 12-10, right? 2-point loss, and you lost 2 fumbles when you're basically crossing the 50-yard line and your offense is on the move. You know, how many times is Jason Witten going to fumble? Well, he lost a fumble there in that game. Ezekiel Elliott loses a fumble, and when you saw it on video replay, it sure looked like his elbow was down, but they didn't reverse the call. So strange game there. You remember the tripping calls that they had. They were very significant in one of their losses. You know, and it's like the NFL apologizes for that. Well, thanks a lot, but it certainly cost us a game. And think about it, you basically lost out getting into the playoffs basically by 1 game. So just strange things. How many times have you seen the Cowboys give up a 92-yard touchdown pass? But that was enough to lose that Jets game. So it seemed like it was one thing after another, and I shouldn't leave out the New England game when the only touchdown scored in that 13-9 loss was set up by a blocked punt that was recovered at the 12-yard line. That was the only Patriots touchdown in the game, but it was enough to beat them. So when you get weird stuff like that happening and you're losing games, 1-possession games, they were 1-6 in, it's difficult to win enough games when you're not winning the close games like they did last year.
Well, the football is shaped a funny way, and for that very reason, the bounces sometimes don't go your way. Mickey, we're going to call it, wrap it up here. We certainly do appreciate you coming on throughout the season here, and best of luck here in the off season, and we'll be looking forward to you on the end-of-year special coming up here, I believe, in the next week or so.
Okay, I hope everybody has a good New Year's.
All right, enjoy the hockey game out there, too. That'll be a fun thing.
I will, absolutely.
All right, appreciate you, Mickey. All right, like I said, that is it for us here, the Silver Star Interactive. Again, you can still submit those questions. Hashtag Ask Mickey, and I'm sure he'll get to you throughout the offseason. Again, we've got the Combines coming up here. Also, the NFL Draft is coming up here, free agency. So a lot of questions, a lot of things still in the air for the Cowboys. It's never a dull moment when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. But again, we're going to put a bow on this thing here. Make sure you guys get out there, have a safe and happy New Year, and we'll see you back here again next year.